to think we're.
All right. Welcome, Rich and Giff.
Hello.
I'm really thankful to have you both here. And
Yeah.
we were just talking before we came on and just getting to know each other because it's the first time that that Giff and I have seen each other's faces on the same screen. Rich and I, have talked, but the three of us first time. So I appreciate both you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. I was just making sure everything was shut in the background. So, but thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite, and thanks for being consistent to make sure I get on here. I really do appreciate it. It's been a while since I streamed, so I just wanted to say thanks right off the bat.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And Rich, anything to say?
Yeah, man. Thanks. Same here. I'm really kind of a background type person, and so this is out of my comfort zone, just even speaking. But I am here. I've been in the background for years, and I'm grinding away. So I'm anxious to get involved and do more. I just don't know what to do sometimes. So I'm always active in the community. So just more or less in the background.
It's Giff. Someone says Cozy Cornucopia says it's Giff.
What's up, dude? I haven't seen that guy in a minute. What's up, Cornucopia? Good to see you.
And not Goo God. Is that Goo God? Good morning, Kings. Good morning to you. All right. So, Giff, where do you want to begin? You were just sharing about your journey a little bit with Hex, and I guess my question is, where's your developer mind right now?
So, yeah, the way I had to explain that is I had to go back to the beginning, essentially. So I'll go back to the beginning, and I'll make it as quick and painless as possible. But Hex is what retired me initially back in 2021. So I was in telecommunications before that. Did that for like 20 years. Got retired, was thankful, got away from that. With the extra money, I was able to really focus on family businesses and personal businesses, and those are running great. And that allowed me to stay retired. And then, something changed about 3 years ago when Hedron and Alex from Hedron, that's literally what they call him, Alex from Hedron. When he came out, and him and I had some late conversations, well, him and a group of mods and I all had late conversations on a regular basis. I started to get really curious in engineering, software engineering. And lo and behold, I just dove into it. I was retired already anyway, so I was able to put in 5 days a week. I think I was doing like 6 to 7 hours a day of coding. And I've basically been doing that ever since. So I got a bunch of certificates, and I don't know what else to say. The rest is history. I've just been coding and deving ever since. And, doing front end stuff is cool. Building websites is cool, but it's really all Web3 that I'm really passionate about. And so, yeah, that's what brings me to today, or brings us up to date. Is if the question is, are you a professional software engineer? No, I wouldn't say I'm a professional software engineer. I don't work a job or a title in that department. However, I'm pretty good with it. I'm getting better every day too.
And so were you one of these people that got airdropped Hex? And are you in Hex from the beginning, or did you find Richard, Hart, and Hex? How did you do that?
That was early. I found RH. That was 2017. That was back in the day, and that was back when I was really heavy in. See, I got into crypto around 2014, I believe it was early 2014, something like that. And in 2017, 2018, I was getting heavy back into really it was Bitcoin, Litecoin, and some other third one. I can't remember. I think that was probably around the time I discovered Ethereum and the whole smart contract thing and all that stuff. Sounded really cool, but I didn't know what any of that was. So
Yeah.
I watched a lot of RH videos back then. And that kind of led me all into Hex. But Did I do the free claim with the Bitcoin? No, because I was too afraid to connect my Bitcoin wallet to that stuff.
Interesting.
Which is fine because it was already really cheap back then anyway. So getting involved was okay. You didn't really necessarily need the free claim.
Right. Right. All right. And how did you hear about this thing, Eros? Like, was it me that reached out to you? Was it Peter? Because I forgot how it happened. Like, how did this, because I mean, I can tell you how it happened on my end, but I'm curious from your end, like who reached out to you first?
Well, one of you guys jumped in the Pulsar group, the Pulsar Telegram.
I think it was me.
Then it was you. Yeah.
I think it was me. Yeah.
So you guys invited me over, and I took a look, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna hang out and see what these guys are about. And it's been good. You guys are a good breath of fresh air, I would say. So I've enjoyed your guys' conversations and your guys' passion and the energy you've been putting into this. And so it's infectious. When you do that, it's infectious, and you'll bring people around, and they'll be curious about what's going on for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. Rich, do you want to share with Giff like how you got interested in this and what your motivations are, and like how you're thinking about the construction of this LP web around not just Eros but the whole migration of value of Titanx value over to Pulse Chain? You want to share that?
I'm trying to think back. What exactly was it? Do you recall how this began for me? I mean, because we started talking, I don't know, maybe I dipped into the chat there and saw what you guys were talking about, just like Giff said. But whatever it was, here's what it is. I had, for the longest time, wanted to get back to Pulse Chain. I mean, I had when Pulse launched, I got tired of it real fast. Because it didn't meet the expectations, and all of a sudden it went down, and I was like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. I didn't have enough. And so I went and found Zen or Cult, one of the two. And then I went to Zen, and then I came to Titanx. And so I've been to Titanx since day one and pretty much been there since. And, I just always keep an eye looking at Pulse Chain, always glancing at it, always keeping up, making sure it's not running away from me yet. So I said, okay. I'm one of these days going to get back over to Pulse Chain. And when something happened, when we started this discussion, this dialogue here, I said, there's my chance to get back into Pulse Chain. I said, I'm going to take all these Titanx coins and bring them over to Pulse Chain and start pairing them with Pulse and PulseX and PDI and Bear and just anything that's going on over there, because I wanted to figure out a reason to be there. And that was just like the perfect reason. Now, this Eros thing, I can't say it's my passion. I cannot tell you with an honest face that that's mine. However, I'm not opposed to it. I own it. I'm going to buy more. I'm willing to go along with it. But my drive is I want to get this Titanx token ethos on Pulse Chain. I want to pair it whatever the fuck I want to pair it with. And if I want to put it with Eros, I'll put it with Eros. If I want to put it with PDI, I'll put it with PDI. If I just want to pair Titanx and DragonX over there and create like a triangle bonding of web liquidity with other strong tokens, then that became my mission. And then once I started down that path, it became fun. I said, you know what? I'm going to do all these tokens. I'm going to bridge every single one. And that's how I figured out how much difficult it was, how much difficulty it was. I said, you know what? Let me see if I can do them all, because I want to prevent others from having to go through this process. At least we can remove one step by getting the bridge to recognize the contract, to get a new meme address, contract address over on Pulse Chain. And I just thought maybe it possibly would save somebody a couple steps. And in doing so, you had to put X amount of money up into these webs, these LPs. And then after I got down to list number 40, I was like, fuck, I got no more money left. So I was like, okay, these people are complaining these LPs at the end. I'm like, that's my money, motherfucker. Yeah, maybe you could join me or something. But that's the deal.
Nice. And Giff, I've got a question. So it brings up around your technology, like the ones that I have learned a little bit. I remember GIF and PGIF, right? And then I studied Pulsar just a little bit, and I heard you talking about Pulsar. And I didn't like what happened when you came to that spaces. Like, I didn't like how you were treated. It was one of the things that really pissed me off about how that community was treating dialogue, not even dissent, but dialogue. So I wasn't happy with it, by the way. And I've been one in that community to call out all of the targeting of like people and in this case a builder definitely trying to do the right thing. And I don't even remember what it was, but I wasn't having it. I wasn't happy with it. And so I think that the whole Pulsar thing, right, is a whole thing. And I'm less interested in like what happened with Pulsar. I'm more interested in the technology. Like, what was it that had you thinking Titan X transforming? You know, it's like your contracts were interacting with the bridge somehow, and there was a train. Could you share with us, like, you know, how you got to Pulsar and like where your mind is about it? Because I think that's why when Peter came to me, you know, and said, "Hey, Chiz, like, are you interested in Eros? Do you have Eros?" And I said, "I do, and I like it. I like PTGC, and I like it." He said, "You know, who are the technologists?" He said, "Do you know this guy Giff who did Pulsar?" I said, "I don't know him, but I followed him for years, and I think he's really brilliant." I'm not trying to, but I'm serious. I thought like you were an innovator in the space, and I heard you studying and building and wanting to do the right thing, right? And so I think he said, "Well, go check him out. Go to Pulsar." And so he sent me there. So I'm curious, like, around the technology. So you heard what Rich did, which basically was said, "I'm going to build out the whole web." He bridged over all the Titan X coins, and now the question is, how do we concentrate the LPs and deepen the pools and make them viable, you know, as a magnet for Pulse Chain? So I'm curious, Giff, what do you think about, like, how did you get to Pulsar, and what do you think about all this?
All right, let me take a deep breath because there's a lot I want to say. All right.
All right, good.
All right. So originally, so after the GIF, PGIF kind of invention there, I immediately started to think about, you know, this is around the time Titan X came out, maybe a few months later, right? And Titan X was out, and I was really interested in that. I made some baller gains in Titan X. It was fantastic, right? I think a lot of us did, right? And so essentially, the GIF token, if you go read what it's about basically me and my journey in software engineering in Web3, right? It's literally a builder token. That's what it's called. It's a builder token. So what do I do with it? I do testing. I come up with ideas and I build it and I deploy it and I talk about it. I go on the shows and I tell people what I'm doing, and it caught fire, right? I'm sure you were watching around that time. It essentially did a 30,000x in less than 3 months. That's what it did. It went from 0.1 wrapped PLS per GIF token to over 3,000 wrapped PLS per GIF token. So it went insane. It brought old hexagons out of retirement to come stream, and they made songs about me. And like, it was just wild. It was the wildest time I've ever experienced in my life. And I was just experimenting. I did not come and say this is revolutionary. You know, I'm going to revolutionize anything, or that I'm promising gains for anybody. I wasn't even telling anybody to buy it. I just wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about what I was doing.
I know. And I didn't buy it because you were saying this is a test. I remember you saying that. And then I was like, what the hell? The test is going on through the roof.
It went insane.
I was like, wow, okay. And then what happened?
So after that, I saw some chinks in the armor, because you don't run tests if you're not looking for chinks, right? You have to figure out what the problem is. There's always a problem because you're doing things that you've never seen done before. So immediately what I found out was that 10 PLS per GIF, which is what it costs to mint PGIF. So once PGIF came out, that's when everything went crazy with GIF, because you had to buy a GIF and use GIF and PLS to mint your PGIF. And the only way PGIF comes into existence is by minting it. So there was no pre-mint or anything, right? So that means that people wanted to be the first to own the coin, right? And so this is just a part of, my way of doing a fair launch, right? Technique. But I wanted to build sustainability with a fair launch. So that's why I charged a fee, 10 PLS per GIF to mint your PGIF. Now, what did that PLS do? It went to a secondary contract, which was a buy and burn contract. And everybody in Titanx know very well how buy and burn contracts work and why they're important, right? So it was going there and it was buying PGIF off the market and burning it. So it's kind of like this creation effect. If you want to create the token, then you're automatically backing it with permeable tokenomics, which is something else that I came up with, right? So essentially, I see that's a problem. I hard coded it to just 10 PLS, and I'm like, that's not enough. I mean, it's 1,200 PLS per GIF, it's 1,500 PLS per GIF, and it's not catching up. The backing for the buy and burn was not strong enough to keep up with the price run of GIF. So what did I do? I'm like, all right, let me see here. I've got real strong ties in the Hedron community, in the ICOSA community. I thought I was pretty good friends with all those guys, and I wanted to give a tip of the hat to them and be like, man, I learned a lot from you guys. Like, you guys are the ones that got me into engineering, software engineering in the first place. So I thought it was cool. I let everybody know behind the scenes what I was doing, and I wanted to build something for ICOSA. And I called it iBurn, or the ICOSA burn protocol. And essentially, it was basically the same thing. Except for this time, we're using ICOSA from Ethereum and the ICOSA that's native to Pulse Chain. You could bring in either token. And this time it was 1,500 PLS per token, which was close to the average price between the two ICOSAs at the given time. Now, this is really. Oh, go ahead.
Is there an ARB or something between? Because I think I remember it was the first cross-chain ARB thing. iBurn was like, yeah. So maybe go. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah. So if people are buying it, so they can, because the whole protocol ran on Pulse Chain, not on Ethereum. So If you were going to create some iBurn because you wanted to hold that, right? You want to hold that token. Then you would want to use the cheaper of the two ICOSAs, right? So you would use, typically at that point in time, it'd be the ICOSA from Ethereum because that price was cheaper. So you're getting the same amount of iBurn at a cheaper price than using the native ICOSA. So there is a bit of an arbitrage there because as that spiked, then people could go and buy it off of Ethereum, bridge it over, and then sell it into that spike for an arbitrage, right? Cross-chain arbitrage to immediately make a profit. So what happened by doing that is it actually brought the two ICOSAs to a parity on Pulse Chain. So my protocol brought it to parity. Not only did it do that, but it pumped ICOSA above what at the ceiling at the time, I think it was 33 hex per ICOSA. And when you do that, when it breaks that ceiling, now there's another arbitrage that became available. And that was in the Hedron ICOSA ecosystem. And just bear with me here. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar, but
I would say just go for it.
I'm just running, but you stop me if I start going.
No, go for it.
So what you do is you could take Hex, you can stake it Quattrocinco, and then you can sell it to the ICOSA protocol to receive ICOSA in return. Well, when it gets above that arbitrage ceiling, then it's another immediate arbitrage. So I know guys that in the community that went and they took millions of Hex and locked it up Quattrocinco to sell it for ICOSA and then sell the ICOSA for immediate profit, and all because of iBurn. And so that pumped the price of Hex in the process and locked a bunch of it, millions and millions of Hex for 15 plus years, right? And I'm doing all this with one protocol, iBurn, right? So that was pretty cool. So now we're doing two different tokens that are native on two different chains. One's a bridged-in token, one's a native token, right? We're creating parity, and we're also affecting other protocols that are built on top of it, right? As in Hex, and Hedron for that matter too. So that was super cool. That was a super cool experiment. I thought there was some really good legs there. Unfortunately, the feedback I got from Alex and team is they didn't like it and they didn't want anything to do with it. So they kind of, this is going to be kind of a narrative, but people don't like my ideas, or they don't like what I'm doing, or I'm not doing it the right way. I'm not asking, please, sir, to the right people. I don't know. But I thought it was a great experiment, and it was a huge success. And I learned a lot about it. And I think the problem with that, I learned two major things. One is you can't build on a community token unless that community really supports you, because it is all for naught. You'll just be called a whole bunch of names, and they will do anything they can to take attention off of you and to ignore you and to put you in a corner, right? The second thing is that the 1,500 PLS per token, which was hard coded in, was still not enough. And not only that, but when the price
it's not enough for what purpose?
To keep up, because so the idea is that you want it to be about the same value of the token that you're bringing in with it. So it's like a double whammy. It's like, all right, I have $1,000 of ICOSA. I'm going to go create iBurn. Well, it can't just cost you 5 pennies to create that iBurn on top of the $1,000 of ICOSA. It's got to be like $1,000 worth of PLS with $1,000 worth of ICOSA, so that when it's minted and that goes to the buy and burn, which iBurn had a buy and burn, when it goes to there, it's actually trying to supplement the price performance, and it's trying to eat up the seller's dumping and burn it forever, right? Permeable tokenomics, like having that permanent bullish stance, right? So that's what I was trying to do. But there was two problems there. One, don't build on a community that is not fully committed to supporting you before you start building. And two, there's still something not right with the protocol fee. That's what we were calling it, the protocol fee. So then I reached out my feelers, was like, all right, I need another community to build on. I need more than one, because I think I've got this figured out. I think I know what to do. And so I reached out and I talked to Randy Hilarski from Nope. And I talked to this crazy group of dudes from this LUSD community. I don't know if you've heard of these guys, but that ended up really bad. But it was a great experiment. It was a great experiment for me to see.
Is the LUSD is that the Liquidity crew that came over to Pulse Chain, right? I know
Yeah, that was wild. And they were, you know, what's sad? What's really sad is they were the best community to bring in that I've worked with. Out of all the communities I've worked with, they were the best. You know why? Every day they would be posting price charts. They would show the arbitrages. Yeah. Then they would get together and have what was called burn parties, where they would challenge each other on who could burn and create more. I called it stable was the name of what burned out of it, right? Because LUSD was supposed to be a stable coin. So except for its STAY, stable, like stay bullish. Anyways, I thought it was a cool name. But so they would do burn parties, and they were pumping it, and they were pumping the buy and burn. But what I did, that was different is I hard coded a way that you could look, that when a user comes to mint the new token, it will look on chain to see at the liquidity pools to look and see what the price of the initial token is in terms of wrapped pulse. So in LUSD or stables in that contract, it was looking at LUSD. It said how many wrap PLS makes one LUSD. Say it's 100, then that's what it's going to cost you in the protocol fee. And as the price changes, the protocol fee changes with it, right? So if you're bringing in $500 of LUSD, it's going to cost you $500 protocol fee. And then an hour later, say it jumps up to it, now it's $1,000, it's worth $1,000. If you want to mint more, you got to bring in $1,000 worth of a wrap pulse. And I did the same thing with Nope, except for we called it No Bull. So you had to take Nope, and you could mint No Bull from it. And it was the same thing. We made the protocol fee dynamic, so it would change with the price of the core token, and that seemed to work really well. I was really impressed on the way that worked. And after we went through those two experiments, that's when I'm like, and we've been talking about Pulsar this whole time while I'm running these experiments. We had the Telegram chat open. We were saying, hey, I got to build something on Titan X. They seem to want us to come build on Titan X. and I want to give something back because those guys, they did a great job, and I earned a bunch of money off of that. So I'm like, I need to put in some time and effort to help them in any way I can, right? So at that point in time, I was like, we're ready. Like, we are ready. Let me just, tie up some things with because at the time I was going in deep on the Omni Bridge, which is the forked Richard Hart's forked version of the Omni Bridge, on how the bridge process works coming from Ethereum over to Pulse Chain. And I had been tearing that thing apart and doing all kinds of testing on Sepolia networks and running it, completely connecting and bridging from a Sepolia test network on Ethereum and bridging it over, and it actually coming in and registering on the V4 testnet of Pulse Chain, which was a huge accomplishment at the time. I was really excited about that. So we were like ready to go. So then that's when we launched Pulsar, and the idea on Pulsar, we take the best things that we learned, right? So dynamic protocol fee, bringing in Titan X. We're going to burn Titan X because that was the ethos. You got to burn some Titan X. I think we were burning.
I think it was 50%, right? I think it was 50% was burned, right? And I remember thinking, what are they going to do with the 50%? That I remember that, and I hadn't really sort of digested what happens to the to the burn stuff, So okay. So yeah, it was 50% burn. Yeah.
Yep. So 50% was burnt. The other 50% was bridging over with an equal amount of freshly minted Pulsar over to Pulse Chain. And it was all automated. This is all hard-coded in smart contracts. There's nobody that can come stop you. There's nobody that there's no website that could go down and then all of a sudden you can't mint Pulsar. But every time somebody minted Pulsar, it was bridging this over to Pulse Chain. And this was all being held by contracts that either had no function to withdraw or change anything, or had no admin keys to it. So no matter what, that stuff was locked. And all it did was it went over there and it pulled up to what we called the Pulsar Pathway contract on Pulse Chain. And any user can go in and click add to LP, and boom, it goes right. All the coins it has stored there, it deposits it into V2 Pulse X on the liquidity pool, and that's all it can do is deposit. It can't withdraw. It can't.
So is it the Pulsar Pulse X pool then? Is that what it deposits?
No, Pulsar Titan X. So it's Pulsar from Ethereum and Titan X from Ethereum paired and locked in liquidity that is still there and can never be pulled, and all it can do is go up in liquidity.
And so the Pulsar Titan X pool is still there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, exactly. So you're like the first one that actually automated this whole bridging and transformation process, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, and I remember when I first met you, not way back when, because I didn't meet you then, but this time I think we had a voice chat or something. You had said something about your thought was to do something on Pulse Chain that unifies all of the diverse chaos and communities on Pulse Chain. And I remember, like, when I heard you talking about Pulsar, you were talking about what would happen on the other side, but you weren't sharing a lot, mostly because I think you didn't want to be a promise coin sort of thing. You don't want to set expectations that, it's like you've got to be methodical about this, And so I guess my question is, like, where is it now? Like, where in your own mind, not even like what happened to it, but where is it now? And what was it that you were thinking that might unify and bring together all these diverse, like, what are you thinking big picture? Like, if you could do something, what would it be?
Well, I mean, originally, I was definitely naive to think that I could bring communities together. Like, that is super naive and utopian kind of like vision. But I really thought it was possible because I had all these friends from all these other communities, and they would just be like, yeah, I'm not interested in that, but you're cool because you're in our community and you contribute and you're always in here, right? And so I had all these communities like circling that I was circled by. And, I thought I had a good rapport with everybody, but there's this terrible thing of like, if somebody talks about a coin that I don't own, then it makes me upset and I want to shut them up. Right. And so bringing communities together is very difficult. It's very difficult. So I was naive to think that I could just bring together all these pulse chain communities and bring together Titan X and this whole 9 yards. And I think the reflection of that is Pulsar itself and iBurn, honestly.
Yeah.
If you want to see how hard it is to bring communities together, look at iBurn and Pulsar price charts. Like that's how hard it is, because the technology is baller in both of those. And there's still very few smart contracts in existence that are as good as those two. And I'll argue anybody with that. I think they're fantastic technology in those. And nobody wants them.
And well, are you interested in reviving Pulsar?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Well, right. And so right, exactly. And so then the question would be like, how does that work? Because like one of the things that this guy, Peter, I think is pretty clear about, and this is one of the things that I was attracted to. People don't listen to him, but I do. Okay. Just because I was tired of waiting. Honestly, I wasn't happy with how the, Titan X ecosystem had evolved. Honestly, it sort of had a series of cultural hits that really divided and conquered, and it's not just the market bottoms. There was some toxicity that needed to sort of work itself out, and so the thing that Peter talks about is aligned interests, right? Aligned interests are the thing with human, especially in a decentralized world. And like professionally, I'm a lawyer, mediator, and multi-stakeholder coalition builder. Okay, so I have a lot of experience in conflict, right? And so that's why, like in Titan X, people brought me in as a mediator. Okay, and I'm like, look, I'm not a mediator here. Okay, I'm a freaking DeFi guy. Okay, I'm an investor. I'm an educator. I'm not your mediator. I'm not your daddy. I'm not your, and so I'm not sure why I was doing this, but I think the point is, communities. The thing that Peter was talking about is aligned interests. But I do think that it's very hard to align interests because there's a lot of PvP, person versus, there's a lot of ego in coins. There's a lot of like ego in this hyper masculine culture that's like disconnected, and people say and do things that they'd never do. I mean, people have said things to me that I'd be like, dude, no, it's like you don't treat me like that. I don't give a, and so the whole keyboard warrior thing and the failure to really communicate is a real impediment to innovation, right? It really is, which is why, I mean, it's sort of what we're intending to do is, my hold on.
Go ahead.
My dog is going crazy. Come on,
Rich,
man.
Jump in there, Rich. What's on your mind?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I was identifying with a lot of the things you were saying about your journey and your experience with how you were treated from the different communities. And I can tell you this, I came from the Hex community first, like I said, and I went around the loop, sort of found my way in Titan X, and then now I'm finding my way back to Pulse Chain. But I can tell you this, what sickens me about these communities is you get these people who feel like they can't say something against the core belief of that community. They can't identify with you because if somebody sees them identifying with you, all of a sudden they're not walking the line. They're a traitor or something. And I'm sick of that shit. I really hate it because to me, before I found a community, I just wanted to be involved in crypto and learn. And I don't want all this other bullshit that goes along with it. I just really don't, because I'm going to make it in this business, but it ain't be because of all of that. And so I try to distance myself with it from that. And that's why I stay in the background, because I got a hot temper and I try to just stay in my own lane. But I can't stand it. I really hate it, because I'm going to go. If you tell me not to go there, I'm fucking going.
I think Chiz was gonna say something, but he's still muted.
All right. Yeah. So
does that resonate with you, Chiz? Because that what Rich said really resonates with me. Absolutely.
100%. And so that's why my attitude about this is that it's all about a decentralized collaboration, right? Which is weird in itself, right? The fact that we sort of have to even come on a stream to talk like this, and it's like not how most businesses or enterprises function, right? And so as someone like I work with a lot of startups, right? And so when I think about these, each project is a startup, right? And they're hard. They're really hard. Startups are really hard. And so it's no surprise that 99% of them fail, right? And so that's why, so if we go back to like this guy Peter's idea, let's not make it about him, right? But let's make it about the idea. The idea of an airdropped Eros, right? I was like, I did it. I mean, I like PTGC, right? I think that they've got a machine that they built. I don't know if you have any insight into them, but I like the contract. They seem like they've built like a blue chip over there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the first 30 people to burn Zen for PTGC before Pulse Chain was even launched. And then you got the airdrop on the other side. And yeah, I did really well in PT. Yeah. But yeah, I was very familiar with them and their contracts and the founder. And yep.
Right. Sure. Yeah. So so what are we building? So you said, what are we building? I think that we have a very small community of holders. The idea is to have what we've got here, which is a small workhorse crew of a few people that hold Eros and are doing what each of us individually wants to do. Right? I said, okay. So Peter said to me, hey, Chiz, why don't you be like the Mr. Prairie banana guy for PTGC, the guy that just is the consistent voice of
he's an early Hedron guy, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I also saw him come in asking questions about Titan X, right? I was an early Hedron guy too. I followed the whole Icosa thing. What were those NFTs? The Last Man Standing NFTs?
I still got mine.
Oh, you still do?
Yeah, we are all the SA address. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember those Watsas. And that was the first of that. So anyway, okay, what are we building? So the idea is, right, to build this liquidity web. It's a migration of Titan X assets, right? And I think there's both interest in it and resistance. It's like everything. There's interest, but there's resistance. People don't like Eros, okay? Which is part of the reason why I like it, okay? Just because I'm a contrarian. If people are like the traditional devs, like the institution of like, it's verboten, don't do it, don't touch it, right? Don't go close to it. I'm like, I don't know. Let me look under the hood. So when someone tells me no, I'm going to explore a little bit. So the institutional resistance to Eros comes from like the cloud that was over the Ethereum protocol, and no one really knows what happened with it, though. People like me that put in our Titan X to Eros on Ethereum got the Titan X back. That's like never happened, right? And so the Eros team had some really good front guys Mark and Rob, who got our Titan X back, and in the process, they airdropped Eros. So I like the story. Peter sort of showed up with an idea, and people like me and Rich listened. And I've done basically what Peter has suggested, which is 10% of my Titan X value I've migrated over, and I've put it in an LP web. And Rich, brought over all of the Titan X coins, right? Peter has built out the pulse chain side of the LP web, focused on what he likes, like Bear, and he and I went into a little P die, and so it's really just the infrastructure is set now. And I think like the reason why you or someone like you was important, at least even as part of the dialogue, right, is because in my opinion, what we need to make easy, right, is this migration. And my question was, well, how do we make it easy to migrate value while at the same time reviving Pulsar, right? And now that I hear Pulsar, I'm like, maybe even, I won't even mention GIF and PGIF yet, but maybe iBurn, right? And how does it all work together, right? How do we align interests? Like Rich a builder, he's a very humble guy. Okay, yes, he's an inventor and he's architected this, and I think he's really smart about it, but he's got other projects, right? And he's planning on, I don't know, Rich, if you want to share with GIF and other people what you're thinking in terms of, but my thought is it has to align. Like if it's going to work for you, GIF, it's going to have to revive like what you've invested in and what you want to do. And that would be the chemistry, is how do we, integrate workhorse interest. My interest is like, I needed something to do. Honestly, I was like, and I wanted to get back to Pulse Chain. So I started accumulating Eros. And now I'm like, okay, now let's make it valuable, right? How do we do that? Well, we build the liquidity web and then we promote, the tip of the sword. But what I know is that what Rich is doing and the resistance that people have to migrate, part of it is not knowing how to do it. And part of it is like, why should I do it? Explain to me why. So that's why I think Peter's ask, not of you, but of a technologist, is twofold. One is like the website that is just the guide. It's the easy guide to like bridge over, right? And then the other is his idea around this transformation of Eros to Eros X. And I'm really curious about your thoughts there, because I actually think that transformation from a tax coin to a non-tax coin is, I think, a really interesting one. And I think you're really the one to sort of maybe, I don't know, think about it a little bit and tell us, like, what do you think about Peter's ideas there?
Yeah, I think he's touching on some very important technology that we could build. I mean, that's how I'm always going to look at things, right? And in technology, you need two things. You need a solid community, and you guys are building that. And then the other thing is you need a vision on where you're trying to take this technology, right? And I've been in the weeds for a long time now, like looking at a lot of different things. And I think that there is an opportunity here to add some new tech to Eros. And Peter touches on it quite a bit in the voice messages he sends us, right? He's touching on it, and he's like circling some really good ideas, and he's not entirely sure if he's found exactly what he's not sure what he's holding, right? He's like, I've got this. Like, what am I holding? GIF, what am I holding here, right? And I think
he's really looking, which is why I like it, honestly, and this is why I like having this dialogue, because there is a very strange synchronicity between his brain and yours, honestly. Like when I hear him talking about all of your projects, I'm like, how does he know this? How so he's a very intuitive person, but he's also been studying and he's been in the game. And So he studies hard. He's a hard worker, and so I guess my question to you is like let's assume that there was a transformation of Eros to Eros X going from a tax or a fee token to not, like, right? And then something happens in the transformation. Like, how would that fit in to your vision for Pulsar?
Well, that's a good question. I've got a lot of ideas on what could be done there. Definitely don't want to go through them all, but I will say
No, definitely. But part of it is just to
general-
provoke. Yeah,
in
good.
general, just if you're thinking about the tech I just described with Pulsar, and also with something like iBurn or Noble, what I was doing there, and then you're looking at liquidity webs, and then you're looking at a token that was airdropped to everybody who had Titan X at that point in time, right? That snapshot, which I found mine thanks to you guys. I had no idea
Right
I
on.
had it, and I found it. And
One wallet or multiple?
just
Should
maybe
check.
2 or 3,
You should
something like
check.
that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
it was
Yeah.
good. It was not like it was a decent amount. Like I was pretty impressed. So
Yeah.
like, very cool. So we've got all these things that are swirling around with the ability to kind of bring it all together. And we've learned so many great things. Like we know what permeable technology is. We know how to bridge between chains. We know what liquidity webs are now, because this, they weren't that, it wasn't that apparent. Even when the grays came out, I wouldn't call it a liquidity web at the time. It wasn't. It was a reflection token, right? It was a reflection, and they were able to chop up the taxes to do different things for them. So we've got all these ideas, all these things wrapping together. And then now there's also an added feature, and I'm not going to give away too much, but out of all the chains that I've looked at, do you know which chain has the easiest like kind of launch pad into validating and the ROI on validating? Do you know who's number one right now? Is Pulse Chain.
It's probably Pulse Chain, totally. I mean, isn't that Alex's work? Isn't that what he's really him or no?
Well, he's talked about it. I don't know where he's at.
Yeah.
He's been MIA for quite some time now. So I don't know where he's at. So I'm not going to speak for him, but he was trying to build a data center that part of it was going to be, as far as I know, I don't know, but some sense of validators. I've since spun up my own validators. I am witnessing how easy it is to set up and how low entry it is to get in.
It's amazing.
And,
it's like 30 billion or something, isn't it?
30 million.
It's 30 million. Wow. Yeah. See, I remember I'm not a tech guy. I was thinking, I could do that. It's like, that's the beauty. There's 50,000
are out there.
I know.
You've got Gamma is a beast on Pulse Chain. Like his RPC is awesome. I use it all the time. He's a validator guy in general. He's got a website where you can track your validators. RH Max, a good friend of mine, streamer guy. He's built his own. He's written his own scripts to make things easier for people to get into validating. And if you just look at all the chains, it would blow your socks off on how many chains will not allow you to validate. Like you're not allowed. It's only the centralized holders that are allowed to validate. And then there's other chains where it's like Ethereum. It's like, oh yeah, you got 30 ETH lying around or what have you. The entry level is very high.
Right.
Pulse Chain's the best. Like if you're trying to learn how validating works, if you're into code, like Pulse Chain, start up a validator, write your own scripts. Like it's a lot of fun. I was knee deep into that for a solid month. Like that's all I did every day. So like there's all these things, right? There's really unique technology in the validators and how it creates income that's using PLS. And we've got all these things like protocol fees, and we've got all these things like taxes from LP webs. You see, like you could kind of start molding something together that could just be an absolute beast on Pulse Chain. And because guys like Rich are doing the good work, and they're bringing over all these Titan X coins, and he's pairing them up on Pulse Chain, If we strike it hot on one of these tokens and one of these new technologies, it's bringing everybody up, right? Hart's Law is going to bring everybody up, and the more volume is going to create more taxes, which is going to go to buy and burns and everywhere else, right? So there's a lot of potential in where this is heading, and it's funny that it's not funny, but whenever something truly innovative like starts happening, there's never more than like 5 people in the room, and right now there's like 3 people watching.
Totally.
And it's like,
Exactly.
if this isn't early vibes, I don't know what early vibes are, because I've been there before Hedron was launched in early vibe, where there was like 15 of us, and I was there early in a lot of these communities, and this is what it feels like.
I got a question. Oh,
Good. No, Rich, go.
So I just want to kind of, obviously I've heard the Hart's Law, and I understand it's basically, to make us a long story short, bonded liquidity, rising tide lifts all boats. Does that really apply to like whatever token? Like if you just bond XYZ shit token to the best token on the market and it goes up, is XYZ shit token going with it?
No, not necessarily. It's super so there's a lot of nuance going on. That's the key word, is nuance. So somebody can make a statement and it could be 100% true, and I can make nearly an opposite statement and it also could be 100% true, because different things can be happening at the same time and at different points in time. So for example, if you've got a super shit coin attached to something that just like flies, say there's a bunch of people who own said shit coin, as it's flying up and they see the value of their coin getting dragged up with it, they start selling it, or it's paired with other coins that maybe are even worse shit coins. And what happens is all these arbitrage bots, which I've been building myself, I've been really deep into that as of late. All these arbitrage bots will find the discrepancies and they will sell down the shit token as the main token's going up. So it's not that easy, cut and dry, and there's a lot of nuance. Now, can it work that way, though? Can I say the absolute opposite and have it be true? Absolutely. If you pair with a token like, let's just say, for example, Pulsar. Pulsar could only be created through the process of burning Titan X, and then it bridged itself over to Pulse Chain. And the cool part about Pulsar is there was not a whole lot of people that still own it. A lot of the Pulsar is in the liquidity pool, or it's being used to pair with other like tokens, right? In new liquidity pools. So the point of the matter is there's not a lot of people who own it. So tokens that have low holder counts paired with another token that flies, it can absolutely pull it up with it.
Well, see, that you just hit the nail on the head right there, because
you are speaking Rich's love language right now, Rich.
Oh, yeah, good.
That is the niche that I have found, and I don't even know what to call it, but I was like, I mean, I don't know what this is, but I feel like there's just no other way this can't fucking work. I'm sorry, I cuss a lot. But anyway, I was just thinking, I found the same thing, because when you have a token that nobody wants to own and everybody's done selling it, they've offloaded it. And then if you figure out a way to just start accumulating the supply, and if you got good intentions with that supply and you all of a sudden start pairing that with strong tokens, you don't have anybody can sell it down. I mean, you might have a handful of people who still got some big deal, but they basically, by and large, cannot dump the damn thing once it starts taking off. So let them make 4x, 3x, 5x, whatever. But if we really get a bull run and you got this supply spread across a lot of LPs and nobody's got any to sell, to me, I can't see how that can't work.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the only caveat, the only nuance you could add into that is the fact that, so if somebody doesn't really own, like, are we talking about somebody like as in a personal wallet address, or are we talking about a smart contract who's owning, who is holding the tokens in its own LP? Because
I'm talking about anybody with the ability to sell. If the sellers have already done and basically dumped it, it's dead for gone. I mean, they left it for dead. They don't have it. So if they don't have it, they can't go get it to go sell it, because when they buy it, they're going to push the price up.
Yeah, it's true. There's always caveats. Like, this kind of happened with the Giff token. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but there was a certain individual who caught wind of what was going on and bought up 24% of the total supply of Giff early on. And then as it pumped and was doing great numbers, this person was single-sided selling and dumping the price of Giff the whole time. And essentially, so yeah, you know, this person maybe put in $1,500 or so early on, but that turned into tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars as it pumps. So there are other techniques that a bad actor could come in and really start to cause you damage down the road. So there's caveats everywhere. If you're trying to do this with a token, just make sure you know who your circle is. Make sure you really
have to know who has the supply. You have to really study who has the supply and where it lives.
You gotta watch the chain, and now I've got scripts that watch this crap for me, and they will email me if there's something that I need to know about, because I'm paranoid now. Like,
Chiz, he's the one working against me right there.
What's that?
I said he's the one working against me right there.
It's been Chiz this whole time. It's his wallet address, always coming after me. Nah, we're just playing.
No, it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a great what other launch pad should you be bouncing off of though? Like that should be where you're at. It's either that or you're at the core of the creation of the token and you're really manipulating that really, really hard. That you're doing protocol first mentality on everything you do. Well, from Rich's standpoint, I agree with him. Like, let's find the tokens that have a really good narrative in it that for whatever reason has been abused over the years. And let's see if we can absorb all of that, as much of the liquidity in the pools that exist. And then, maybe as you're kind of pumping it, you're weeding out those people that have been sitting around hoping to sell their $50 worth or whatever, right? And you're just absorbing that until you get to the point to where there's no real resistance for you from your next big run. Now, how many legs are you going to get out of it? That's where the nuance comes into play on what I told you about somebody coming in early and grabbing a large amount that you probably shouldn't have trusted, right? Because that caveat's there, but you'll get the first leg. I think what you're describing, Rich, is like by using your technique, that technique that you described, you can almost but guarantee the first huge leg of gains. The only stipulation is, can you get enough people interested in what you're doing and can come in and be like-minded? Right?
Well, the way I kind of view it is that if you got a token that nobody has got any left to sell, and then you pair it with a token that's about to take off and have some real positive price action, it seems to me if you have an LP with that token that has positive price action, but you got it paired with your token that nobody wants, and then all of a sudden you've got the cheapest XYZ token on the block and the other one is 4 times more valuable, but yours is cheap. So they don't care what token you got paired with it. They're going to find a way to get to that other token that you're holding that's cheaper, 4 times cheaper than the one that's running right now. So you kind of, in my bad analogy, you kind of hold hostage this token that is more valuable, that it's a supply of the token that's running, but nobody can get to it because they got to get your shit coin to get it. Am I right or wrong about that?
No, you're right. Yeah. No, I think you're doing a great job explaining it. Absolutely. I mean, you're essentially, for the lack of a better term, you're cornering the market on that token. It's the same thing. If you own the majority of the supply of anything, if I own the majority of the supply of all the diamonds, I'm going to hoard those. And when people want to buy those, it's going to create crazy movements in the price action of diamonds, right? De Beers does a great job at that. So yeah, you're describing cornering the market and making an asset super rare, super scarce, and essentially trying to connect it to like with diamonds, like maybe something really cool comes out in some other precious material, and you're saying, no, we got to put diamonds on that titanium or whatever, right? Like, no, we got to put diamonds on it. Anytime somebody sees that new shiny material that was just found, I want my diamonds attached to that so that it rides with the momentum, right?
Yeah. So Chiz, that solidifies what I was talking to you about maybe a couple of days ago or last week. Whereas you can't do this with every token. You have to have a token that is done inflating. It can't have a supply that is able to be reminted or continuously come. And you have to deal with a fixed supply, and that people are already done selling and walked away, and they don't even know that it's even still on the deck screener. Basically, and if you take at that time, start accumulating while nobody's watching, and all of a sudden you've got the mass supply, and now you've got a good intention to go do something with that, you could just pair it with a bunch of strength tokens, and nobody can sell it down on you. And you just wait. If it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever.
I mean, I think what we're hearing is Rich's strategy, right? This is what he's been doing, and I've been following him with the tokens that, you know, that I have that he's focused on, right? And then, and I'm sort of curious about Pulsar now, because there's a part of me that thinks that Pulsar might have some, like, I don't know, what do you call this? Like, it's like an icon of something, right? I don't know exactly what it is yet, and I guess my question is, like, because you said like it's mostly in the LP. But then do you know who the holders are? Do you care? Do you think about that? Like, how do you think about Pulsar, and what would be your hope for that, like, token, and what's the platform that it really wants to be on, I guess?
From what I can tell on chain, and we got to look at two different chains. From what I can tell is, if you're looking at Pulse chain, almost all, if not 95% of the liquid tokens are in the LP pool that cannot be pulled. So it's paired with Titan X over there. So it's extremely rare on Pulse chain. And then on Ethereum, if you look, from the best that I can tell from what you can read from on-chain analytics, is that the majority of the tokens has already been sold off or burnt. So where it exists now is basically what I hope are some diamond-handed individuals who, you'll notice that there's like other Titan X coins in the same wallet. Right. And they're not even holding huge amounts, but they just seem like individuals that wanted to support Pulsar at the beginning and then chose not to dump when everybody else was dumping. They're like, I'll just hold on to this. No big deal. Those are the type of dudes you want in your community. So it seems very solid. I'm pretty aware of 30 plus wallets that are malicious that I know about, and none of them own any. They've already sold. It's already been done.
Nice.
It's gone. So the malicious actors are not in Pulsar, and they're not in iBurn either. I can say the same thing about iBurn. So I'm very bullish on those two coins in particular because of that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to leave anybody behind. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait until the time is right to do something with the other tokens that I created. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Rich, do you have a question?
I was just going to say, those are perfect tokens. I mean, they fit the exact, characteristics of what I look for in this strategy. Yes, exactly. Pulsar, exactly.
And
where people have forgotten about it. They're not talking about it. They've dumped it. They moved on to the next shiny object. It's forgotten, but yet it has such big potential when you know where the supply exists. And this is the thing. I'm not trying to make a 1x, a 2x, a 3x. I've already succumbed to the fact that we might add a 0 in Titan X. In fact, I'm actually hoping for it now. I'm like, okay, come on down. I'm going to get a bunch more, and I'm going to keep stacking my bags on this. I'm not even pissed off about it no more. I mean, I hate the fact that we had to make a round trip, but here we are. So yeah, go lower if you want, and then to me, but like you said, the perfect characteristics are, well, I don't know. Wait, can Pulsar still be minted? I think I heard you just say that.
It can, but at a loss. So the minting, you have to, so one pulsar has to be worth more than 8 Titan X in order for there to be an arbitrage there and for it to be worth minting. So in other words, you can mint it right now, but it would cost, you would put more value in, almost double. You'd have to put in, if you put in $1,000 worth of Titan X and Ethereum to mint Pulsar, you'd get about $500 worth of Pulsar out.
Yeah. So in many of the mining protocols, people by now have figured out how to stay away when the ROI is negative, because I think, nobody's going to do that, obviously. So, so that makes it by default, the supply is somewhat limited or deflationary until such time that it becomes. So if there was to be a run on Pulsar, it would become positive, and you could see some people trying to make those 10, 15, 20 bucks a day by going minting some, dumping the next day. And I call that the Zen mentality.
Well, it's not, here's the difference is it's not mining. So if there's an arbitrage opportunity, you get it immediately. So you mint the token and then you sell it for more of the original token, whether it be ETH or Titan X, whatever. And then you immediately profit, and it automatically brings it back down to that ceiling. So the key difference is that every time that the minting's happening, it's feeding the buy and burn. But there's nobody sitting around with like 1,000-day stake or 1,000-day mint, and it just so happens to come out tomorrow. Like there's no inflation schedule, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not a thing, and it's not entirely impossible to create a situation where no more Pulsar can be minted. So that is possible.
And what's the demand equation for Pulsar, do you think? How would you think about that? Like
that
what
has yet to be created. So the initial supply is, how do we get out? The whole idea was, how do we burn some Titan X, get some of our tokens out there, and then come out with a phase 2, so to speak. In the phase 2, it can't be something silly, it can't be like something like, rehashing.
Yeah, the community's done with that. This they can see through it now.
Yeah, I could have built out 6 expansions on it in my sleep over the weekend. There's just no point in my mind to do that. It's just inflation on inflation on inflation, and then in the end, there's a few people who win and a bunch of people who lose, and it's just like, that's not really what I'm trying to do. So yeah, my strategy is hitting the books, man. That was my strategy. Like, let's get the inflation out, let's let the dust settle, and I've been hitting the books for months, and I want to get something really solid out that will use Pulsar, and hopefully will use maybe Eros X, and maybe it will use iBurn, right? And maybe there's going to be kind of a string of smart contracts, no more like 1, 2, or 3, but it may require 6 or 7 smart contracts to pull something off. But if it's not going to be extremely hard and unique and innovative, then I'm not interested in doing it. It's essentially where it comes from.
And so you just mentioned Pulsar, iBurn, potentially Eros X, and one more. What was the other one that you mentioned? iBurn, Pulsar, Eros X, and that would be interesting. And how would you see, like, what would be the value if there were value in Eros X? Like, what would be the value to that platform? Like, what would be the contribution based on like what we've heard and what you've sort of heard Peter saying? Hey, you transform it 33, a third goes to, burning, Eros, a third goes to the LP, a third goes to, buy and burn Eros X. Like, that's what, and he even said, ask Giff what he thinks about that, right? but I'm interested in what do you think about that, but also like imagine what it would do with iBurn. And you don't have to tell us. It's more like, because that's maybe the secret sauce or something, like what might be happening on that platform.
Oh, well, that's going to be a hard question to answer without giving away too much secret sauce, because it's not
All
even just secret sauce. It's like, just me talking about it creates a expectation that I have
Totally.
to do it, that I have to deliver it, and that it has to be great, and it has to make everybody money, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I got to build more, and then there's more
Totally.
expectations, and then it gets wild. As a founder, as a dev who's
Totally.
a founder, there's not many of us. There's very few of us. It can pile on really quick. So that's why we're all very, very careful about what we put out there
Totally.
on the expectation side.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. And actually, the only dev who's also a founder, like a real like a founder, builder, real dev, is the Ouroboros dev. I don't know if you know him.
What does he go by?
Super shadowy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you know him. Have you ever been in dialogue with him?
Not directly, but indirectly.
Yeah.
Probably not a lot I have to add there.
Yeah. I mean, my experience is just as a solo operator, right, who really does everything. I think he's very skilled at all the myriad, things that you really have to think about. Everything. It's a business. It's a community. It's a protocol. It's security. It's deals. It's huge, and so that's why personally, yeah, I would just, I believe in this idea of unity of focus. Like you can only do one thing really well at a time, right? And so I think, and maybe that's where we should end this is, just with the question, like if we were going to do something, what might it be? And we don't need to answer that. Rich, anything at the end before we say good evening?
I mean, it's not on the tip of my tongue, but I think if you ask Giff what he's got to close with, and I'm sure I'll come up with something before we're done.
Sure,
Yes.
yeah. I would say, one of the things Peter has been floating around is, getting some front ends built that, maybe we're copying another front end, or maybe we're creating a unique front end. I've got something that I kind of spun up in the few couple hours, maybe tops, that I had, and very easy to spin up a page that can interact with smart contracts on the back end. That's not hard at all. So that, that's something we could put together. I think, building that out is important, but it should probably pace the build of the community itself. So as we bring in more people, then that's when we got to start building out. And I don't think we really want to outpace one or the other, right? Like you don't want a whole bunch of people jumping on board, and we like literally have no like unified front end.
Right.
We're going to want that, and we also don't want to build too much with 20 some odd people in the Telegram. So
Exactly.
There's going to be a kind of a nice balance that we'll have to play with as time goes on.
Yeah, so I did think of something, and you triggered it, Giff, so thank you. So early on, I had the idea of, it'd be really cool if you could see the value of your liquidity pools, one. And again, I'm not in these liquidity pools for fees. That is peanuts. I'm just parking money in liquidity pairs and pairing with strength. That's the real vision for me, is that part, not the fees. I'm not even worried about fees. I don't have no clue. And I'm not worried about impermanent loss either. But still, back to this, would love to have like some sort of a visual into what is the ROI on this LP, or the tokens that you have in the LP? Did they increase in value since you put them in there? Is it more valuable now on Pulse Chain than the token is on Ethereum? Is there an arbitrage play present because now you have one that's worth 3x more than it is on Ethereum? well, that ain't gonna last long. But I mean, if he had any kind of visibility into that, that would be attractive to people. That would draw people, because then we got something to say. Hey, look what's happening here. You got Pulse. You got Volt. It's over on Pulse Chain. It's worth twice as much what it is on Ethereum. Holy shit! Let's go get. There's a play there. So, yeah, go ahead, Chiz.
I just want to say that, to just follow up, Giff, you seem like the right person to almost like have a technical vision of what it would look like what you said is a unified front end, but it maybe not even Eros might be part of something like a front end, a unified front end. And I think that what you represent for me, and because of Pulsar, it is this bridging thing. It's this like Ethereum to Pulse chain to Ethereum. It's the whole Richard Hart, bridging system. And I think that taking advantage of that, of like all the capital on Ethereum, and especially this, like, if we had something that was simple and elegant and profound, like as a very first little build, it needs to be very simple, very elegant, and very like a profound something that made it really easy. That's like the obvious thing for me that made it easy for this migration. And then basically did what you had said, which is like guide people on Pulse Chain, because the thing with Pulse Chain is that it's like the Wild West, literally. I mean, it is so rowdy out there. It's so deep. And you're like, the deeper you get, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's some deep holes, some deep rabbit holes, man.
I mean, I'm like, seriously, I have stopped looking because it's so I think that will be, if it's me, and I'm Pulse Chain native, right? I left for a year and a half while I'm doing Titan X and other things and, exploring Sonic, but I've come back, and honestly, I think what people need is something to do on Pulse Chain to like helping people to get educated first, to make good decisions with my capital, like, what do you do? And so I just want to put that into your brain. I think you are the right, there's no pressure, right? Honestly, there's no
put some pressure on me here. I'm going to put some pressure on myself real quick.
Okay.
So here's one thing, and this is wrapping together what Rich had mentioned and what you're talking about. I'm going to kind of put them together here.
Good.
And I'm going to say this because if somebody takes this idea and they want to go build it, then that's great for everybody. One thing you learn in engineering, specifically when you start writing your own scripts and you're reading contracts and you're deriving information from the blockchain that you can't get anywhere else, like you can't get from a block explorer, you can't get from certain front ends. There's a lot of information you can pull that is not accessible readily. So one thing that Rich was talking about was like, it would be great if all of these liquidity pools that I have, I can see my APRs and see how much money I got in there and what's going on there. See, the cool part is that, or the frustrating part is that right now Rich is having to work with, exchange front ends. So he's going to PulseX, for example, or 9mm or 9-inch or whatever, and he's depositing and making his LP, and then that front end is designed for people just to come in and deposit and be able to withdraw and claim fees or whatever, right? But there's nothing stopping somebody from building a front end that is not PulseX but interacts with the smart contract, right? That's able to pull all the same data and then some more, so that maybe on this front end you don't even have to connect a wallet. You just throw in your the wallet address that you're interested in. And on the back end, the script, the bot, whatever, it pings all those LP pools and it finds your allocations, puts them all on one page, and displays exactly what you want to see. What's the value in between? What are the timestamps and when these were deposited? Because the timestamps will tell you between timestamp when you deposited and the time that you're querying or you're asking the blockchain for information. That's your APR. That's your time in the market. right? And so just by plugging in an address, and you could look at other people's addresses too, plug in an address, you see all your LP positions at once on one page with all your APRs, with all the percentages, and maybe some cool interactions that you can do within the contract, like send an LP to another address, or I don't know. There's many things that when I start pulling things apart, when I start pulling contracts apart, I start noticing like, hey, why doesn't anybody display this? This is interesting here. Let's do that there. Is that something that you were kind of envisioning, Rich, that would be a helpful tool?
Yes, and I need to give credit here to Mike Dean, because he's a friend of mine, and we've been collaborating to some extent about how I could get visibility into this. But basically, it's in the confines of what his DApp or website does already. Like, it lists the tokens, and just recently in the past few weeks, he's listed now the LPs, and I can see what's really important to me is I'm so glad to see the token symbol. If I got a generic symbol with a question mark in it, I'm not interested in that. I'm not entertained. I want to see the token symbol, and then I want to see the value of both tokens in there. And so that much has been achieved. It's just, I can't ask for any more than that, because that would be outside the scope of his website. So what I'm trying to figure out now is how can we use that as a quick glance, but at the same, and that's for the masses. I say the masses, most people will just look at that. But then now, if you want to dig deeper and say, okay, how is this working? Like, I put this in, it was 500. Now it's 2,000. Maybe I scale out of this LP 50%, and then I take portions of that and sell into strength when the bull market's going. I mean, at some point, we're not all going to own tokens till we grow old and die. We want to eventually sell some. So my point is to sell them at the right times, and you sell into strength when the bull market is running. You're not going to be trying to sell at the lows. Hopefully that's when I was buying. So yeah, having that visibility would be huge. And I'm just not tech savvy enough with all this to understand how to get it.
Yeah. Isn't Pulsar still banned on his website, right?
I don't know whether it's banned, and I never had that discussion with him, to be honest.
Well, that's just what I'm talking about, is like, a front end where you throw it in there and it will show, any allocations you have, any LP allocations you have, not on a short list. It's just whatever it sees in the wallet.
So there's a difference. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's probably a difference between the tokens that are listed on the front page and the tokens that are shown in your LP. If it has a contract address on Pulse Chain, it will be showing in your LPs, regardless if it's on the front page of his project list or not.
Nice.
So yeah, just for good measure, I'll get some Pulsar this week, and I'll make an LP, and I'll make sure it shows up there.
Nice. Doing the good work again. Appreciate it.
So the one pool is the Pulsar Titan X pool?
Yeah. On no, there's more pools, but that's the biggest one.
That's the biggest one. And what would stop us from doing an Eros Pulsar pool? Nothing, right? Nothing. Right. Nice. Right. Yeah. One thing I always like, so as a crypto, I'm not a degen really, but I'm deep enough in the weeds that, but I like dashboards. I like something that I'm able to manage my positions with. Something like that doesn't really exist, a lot. And I think it's especially in the Wild West, it's very helpful to help people to see what we hold and sort of integrate it all in one place. So I do think a unifying entry point for Pulse Chain is a good idea. It's a big need, and I think, I'm gonna think about how these all fit together. I'm gonna go back and study iBurn actually, because I remember studying it and I remember being interested in it, but something I don't know, for whatever happened, I stopped thinking about it. Maybe it was when the community rejected, it or something like that, which is typically what happens. Is like there's like people drop things, right? And then the devs and the build it just get dropped, right? And it's not good. It's really not good. It is what happened to you, in Titan X for sure. I mean, it's like, come on, guys. I was like, what do you freaking treat constructive innovators like this? I was like, why? I didn't get that at all, honestly. And I think people were threatened, quite honestly. And I also think that if I remember, like the launch was a little wacky or whatever, but it really wasn't that. It was something else. There was something that resisted Pulsar. And then I think a lot of people have taken the Pulsar tech actually and used it, haven't they?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how it's meant to be, right? It's open source. It's not like it's sort of like hip hop. You sort of put it out there in the world, and then people innovate on it. But still, it's like, do you have any thoughts about that? Like how people have utilized the technology, or should we save that for another time?
Let's save it for another time. I think this is a good stopping point, and I had a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah.
Good time
Yeah,
here.
me too.
Again.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Giff, Rich. Thank you for hanging out, and it was a
Yes.
pleasure to be with both of you. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, and good to meet you, Giff.
You too, Rich.
Take care. Do the good work.
All right, guys.
Take care, guys.
Have a great evening.
Mhm.